No stranger on Wednesday nights at all. These two know each other, I'm sure. They remember each other. Jenifer Daniels would always follow John Allen for our Women's Wednesday segment. John Allen, sidewire.com. Download the app, NRDC Studio. And Jenifer Daniels in Charlotte, our former co-host of Women's Wednesday. And because she's right there on the ground in Charlotte, just kind of wanted to get an idea from her about what's going on. Jenifer, dear, how are you? Do we have her? Jenifer,
as good as I can.
Hey, Jenifer, you doing okay? I'm sorry I couldn't hear you. You doing okay?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm doing about as good as I can right now.
John Allen's here with us too, Jenifer. We just wanted to check in with you. Tell us what's happening as a resident and a parent there in Charlotte.
Yeah. So it's funny because I was going to text you earlier. You guys know back in March I kind of talked to you about how I had to take a break.
Yeah.
And leave. And I know it probably seemed hasty to hear it, but I think what you saw last night transpire has been bubbling up for quite some time. And those two things actually go together. This city, all day I've been tweeting what I like to call the Charlotte syllabus. This city is highly segregated. Our schools are segregated. Our neighborhoods are segregated. And before we moved here to Charlotte, it's odd. I wish I would have known this before we moved. But the city, there was a social capital study done. And at the time, it compared 40 communities. And Charlotte was 39th on that list of interracial trust. So this city, while it is the New South, it is still grappling with Southern things and Southern ideas. And so what you guys witnessed last night was a bubbling over. I was actually very surprised that it took this long. I felt like the residents were extremely restrained after the Jonathan Ferrell case, almost to a point where it seemed like maybe folks were just in shock. Maybe they were just in shock, and the grief that was represented at that time was more of a standstill. But last night, I actually witnessed the build up to the riots. And so this neighborhood is maybe 10, 15 minutes from my house, one street to get there. And so I got in my car with my cell phone with the intent of taking stock of what was happening from an alternative media view, because, we know what the TV likes to show us, but what really happened. And when I got there, I realized that the police were planning on this happening and basically escalated the situation last night. They blocked off an entire country mile, and I do say country mile because their miles are different here than they are in New York and in D.C.
Oh, I know.
But they blocked off a country mile, and Charlotte is still the South, and it's still the country, and we have a lot of streets that don't have sidewalks or streetlights. And so they blocked off a neighborhood with crime tape, an entire neighborhood with crime scene tape and police vehicles, and proceeded to track residents in two separate apartment complexes and a neighborhood in their own neighborhood. And so this stuff was bubbling over. So I got as close as I could. I had to park at an adjacent apartment building and kind of walk my way in. I think I walked about maybe a half a mile in, and got some video footage. And, at that time it was maybe about 35 protesters. But as the hour went on, more people came from out of their apartments and were rightly upset because they felt like they were being held captive in their neighborhood for something that they didn't do. And then the police chopper arrived, and then the riot gear arrived. And then I left because I knew what was coming. And so by the time I got home, that's when things kind of got a little rowdy, and folks basically acted out their trauma. So today it's a bit more peaceful. Folks are downtown right now demonstrating. The last I saw, they were walking to the police station downtown, and they're very vocal, and they have, signs out. But the residents want answers. Apparently this gentleman was not known to be someone who carried a gun or owned one. And it's very typical in this city for residents to sit at bus stops and wait for their children to come home. Because, again, these are country miles. There are no sidewalks for students to walk on to get to their house. They're literally walking on the side of the road. So that's where we are today.
Let me ask you, Jenifer Daniels. We were originally told, the reports were that he had a book. The police chief is
Correct.
saying he had a gun. Do we know which side is true?
His daughter said he had a book.
And where was she? Was she in the car? Where was she?
She was in the apartment building.
Okay.
So typically, this seems odd, but it actually happens. The school buses don't drop off children in front of their homes, and especially if you live in an apartment building. They like to use a designated stop that then children maybe could walk quarter, half a mile home. And a lot of parents don't like that. So they park their cars at the bus stop to wait for the children to get off the bus and then carry their child back to the house, half a mile or whatever in the car. So it's probably more than likely that he did have a book because he was probably waiting there for 10, 15, 20 minutes. The police are stating that he had a gun. They said they found a gun. But right now we don't have dash cam footage, and we only have the story of the person who's alive. And so, people, on either side of the coin will say, don't rush to judgment, don't rush to judgment. And so until we are able to see with our own eyes what happened, the only word that we have is that of the officer versus our common sense. And our common sense tells us that most likely he had a book and he was sitting there reading this book while he was waiting for the child to get off of the bus.
What's the mood of the community today?
It is extremely somber. I was on campus today this morning. It was an odd place to be.
Now which campus? Tell us where you are again.
UNC Charlotte.
Okay.
And the students are they're confused. A lot of them participated in their own protest today. They laid down. They laid their bodies on the floor of the student union in protest. It's a somber place right now. I think Charlotte was one of those cities that it likes to put its head in the sand and not tackle its issues. There's a sense here that if we don't talk about it, it will go away, and clearly it's not going away. I can't say that I'm shocked by what happened last night, but I am surprised.
How old are your children now?
Jordan is 9 and Ross is 4. And I asked Jordan, too. I said, did you guys talk about this today? Even last night, she was in the room with me, and the news broke in, obviously, and I just got up and I got dressed, and I didn't say anything. And she was like, where are you going? And I didn't say anything because I didn't know what to say, to be honest with you. And as I was grabbing my keys, she said, be safe. Because by then she knew that I was getting ready to go out.
Your daughter asked you to be safe, told you to be safe.
Yeah. Yep. So I asked her today that they talk about it, and she said just her and her friend discussed it. They're confused. She's tired. It seems like every time she sees me in a sad space, she says, who died? Because it seems like it keeps happening, more and more. And she can't keep up with these names, and we can hardly keep up with these names.
Yeah, we can't.
And so,
John, you have a black child saying to a black parent, "Be safe." Normally, that's the other way around. That's a parent saying that to a child.
I'm speechless. Yeah. It's heartbreaking. I have small children too. They don't say "be safe" to me. I don't feel like I need to tell them to watch out for the police officers. In fact, I tell my children if they are lost and they see a law enforcement officer to go find that person. Tell them that they're lost. I was talking the other day on Sidewire to a friend of mine, Jamie Harrison, who's the Democratic Party chairman in South Carolina. He's an African-American guy. He's a Yale graduate. Again, the party chair for Democrats in South Carolina. He's a lawyer. He was an aide to Jim Clyburn in the House. And he was saying he wakes up every day wondering if it's going to be his last.
Yeah, that's real. I
And
had
not
a
that anybody else should have to worry about that, but here's a guy who is unbelievably accomplished, uh, smart as can be, and it doesn't matter. None of it matters. And I find it heartbreaking. And Jenifer, I'm amazed at how cool, calm, and collected you are on this show.
Thank you. It is. It's definitely trauma-inducing. Like I said, just man, I'm glad that I was in the position that I was in last night. You can, in the movement, you can put your body on the line, or you can put, your mouth to a megaphone. And so that's what I did last night. And I chose to be on the outside because I wanted to see what the police were doing. And I tweeted the entire way and shot video, and I was very clear and adamant to say that this is a peaceful protest. This is a peaceful protest. But as it escalated, I made note of that, and I said there is a chopper hovering above us now with a spotlight. There are riot cops coming. 10 cars just whizzed past me. They are preparing for something. And they did just that. They hopped off of that city bus with all of their riot gear on, and folks, basically they lit the flame. Yeah, it's hard. It's real hard right now. And like I said, to hear my daughter say, "Be safe," I just, to know that she's cognizant of what's happening, and to know that she was cognizant that her mother was choosing to go into a space that could potentially harm her, but she understands why, and she knows that it's something that I'm called to do. But this is ridiculous. I never, ever in my life imagined that this was something that I would deal with. I heard these stories from my grandmother. I just don't understand why this is happening again.
And I think the other thing that's heartbreaking is that the rest of the community, the rest of the American community, is slow to anger here, is slow to action. Yeah. I guess I heard today that there are some boycotts going on in Charlotte. It took so long in the civil rights movement to get the white community activated, for lack of a better way of putting it, and it's taking far too long now, and the stakes are so high.
Yeah, they're extremely high. I think, so if you're listening tonight and you're an ally, the best thing that you can do right now is, one, check on your friends, check on their state of mind, but then also amplify their voices in this time, because allyship is just as important as the work that we're doing. But we need you all to be activated with us. This is not a fight that we can win on our own. And right now we're dealing with a group of people who are attempting to rationalize death, which is mind-boggling to me. I never thought I would hear arguments as to why people needed to die, especially in the land of the free and the home of the brave, where we say everyone has the right to a trial, innocent until proven guilty. We're handing down, and not we, because we're not doing it, the police, certain police, are handing down guilty sentences to people who have not even been charged with a crime. Last night, that was the case. They were not even looking for that man. They were serving a warrant on someone else.
So how did they come up on him in the first place?
Not just
if they were looking
guilty
for him,
sentences, they're executing.
Yeah, execute, right, death sentences.
Executing.
Judge, jury, and execution.
Yeah, because like I said, Mark, he was literally just sitting in his car. He just happened to be sitting in his car at a space that they were at. They were going to that apartment building to serve a warrant on someone else, and he happened to have his vehicle either in their way or in a place that they didn't believe he should be. And like I said, this is not uncommon in this city. This is not uncommon to sit at a car and wait. It's so common, actually. It's ridiculously common. And so I don't even understand how it got to that point. In Tulsa, what do we find? This gentleman's car was broken. I don't understand this. And then people can sit in your face and rationalize the death of people who didn't even do anything. They were not in the act of committing a crime at all. How do you kill people like that?
How did they even come up on him if they were looking for someone else, Jenifer? Do we know?
They said that, his family says that he had a head injury. And so he hasn't kind of been right since the head injury. And I guess and the police officers were plainclothes, so let me be very clear with that. So they were not in a cop vehicle, a traditional vehicle with lights and sirens, and they were not in uniform. And I guess their paths just happened to cross at the most inopportune time, where he was getting out of his car and they were coming onto the scene at the exact same time. Their paths somehow crossed, and this is where we are today. And so, and then you have to have all of those circumstances in place, because the perception is he had a gun, he's waving it around, some guys in some police cars roll up on him and say, hey, stop waving that gun. That's not what happened. He was in his car waiting for his child, to get off of the school bus. And so now I want to ask people who want to rationalize, imagine the child who finally gets off the bus, and that's what you get off to. The trauma that this child is going to experience.
How old was it? You know how old his child is?
They haven't said how old this child was.
But so again, this is a child walking off the bus to that. You have children who have no choice but to relate to that, because their peers are finding their parents dead at the hands of the police. What happened to the innocence of our children and them being allowed to grow up and be children and not have to be worried about whether or not we as their parents are going to make it home?
Yeah. And I don't, and you know, I mean, you have a child also, and I just don't even, or children, I don't know what to say. I don't know.
Well, you know what I have to do.
That's a really hard place to be in too, because our children expect us to know everything, right? They look up to us. We know everything. We're older than them. You know, we're taking care of them, and they think we know the answers. And when we don't know the answers, imagine how scared that makes our children.
You know, it's gotten so bad that I know in my case, I just have to hope and pray nothing happens to my children. And if something happens to somebody, I'd rather it be me. But that's kind of the deal I have to make with myself every day. Let it be me. Just don't let it be one of my children. And I no one should have to make that choice. No one should have to live like that or wonder. You know, but I still worry, because what if something happens to me? What's going to happen to my son? What's going to, you know, what is going to happen to him? So I really can't allow anything happen to me either. But when we leave the home every day, the both of us, we just don't know. We just don't know. All we have is our faith, and I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. Jenifer, we got to run, but thank you for sharing that with us, and you know, give Jordan and Ross and your husband my love, and let's stay in close touch, okay?
Yeah.
All right, love you.
Thank you for calling.
All right, love you.
All right, you too.
All right, take care. Jenifer Daniels. John, thank you, man.
My pleasure, man.
All right.
Not really my pleasure, but
yeah, no, I understand.
You're welcome.
We'll talk.